Welcome back to another amazing episode. I'm your host for today, Isabel Wells, and I am so excited and honored to be joined by a very dear friend and graduate of our Soul Rising online shamanic Reiki program, Diana Rayl. Diana's here today to share her experience as part of the program and also how it has shifted and transformed her life since graduation. Diana, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm so happy to see you again.
So, obviously, I know so much about you, and it's been such an honor to get to walk with you for the past 6 months now and witness your journey and transformation. But I would love for us to just start with you telling us a little bit about yourself in your own words. How did you get to where you are today?
If I had to say who I am, I think I could tell you I'm a confident and comfortable woman with who I am. I'm a mother. I'm a wife. I'm a grandmother, which I just love. I'm a friend. And I think, like most people, and probably everybody listening, I've had my ups and downs, and I've been working through them. And, that's what's made me the person I am today.
Beautiful. And so that I don't think is how you would have described yourself 4 months ago. So can you tell us a little bit about who and where you were before you started Soul Rising and what really inspired you to join the program?
I was I would say I wasn't a confident person. I felt like I always had to ask for help because I was a little nervous about doing things. I really didn't know who I am. And it's funny because I always would say with these different things, oh, I want to find my true authentic self, but I didn't even know what that meant. So I think that Soul Rising is giving me a place to start. And I want to continue on with it because it just has done so much for me.
And so, of course, this wasn't the start of your healing journey. You'd been on that journey for quite a while. So, can you tell us a little bit about how that started and how it brought you to the point that you enrolled in the program?
Sure. I always think it's a funny story because I was kind of wandering around the house, and CBS this morning, in what's it called? CBS Sunday Morning was on. And all of a sudden I stopped and I turned to look at it, and they were interviewing a Reiki master. I really didn't have any idea what that was, but I was so drawn to it that immediately afterwards I Googled and found a Reiki master near me and set up a session. After the first session, I said to her, "Can I come back tomorrow?" So I did. And I knew that I had to start learning about Reiki, and then just kept taking classes. I was taking Reiki 1 and 2 over and over and over again just to really get it in me. And then became a Reiki master and have just been working on it. Animal Reiki, it just, the more I can learn, I'll just take it in.
And so, at what point did you find out about what was at the time known as Reiki Cafe University and is now Moon Rising Shamanic Institute? At what point did you find out about our community and feel drawn to join us in a deeper way?
Well, when I was first starting with Reiki, I was looking up podcasts everywhere. So I was listening to different podcasts, and Reiki Cafe, the coffee and conversations in my car driving, taking walks, I had those on. So I wanted to find out the Facebook page, went, joined the community, and just loved seeing what people were saying, what you, Christine, Chantel were writing about. So I would watch that, and then that would lead me then to have the live Facebook ones to watch.
And what about those conversations really drew you in? Was there a particular aspect of what we would talk about or what we would share that really resonated with you?
I think that, you're talking to each individual.
Mm.
It maybe you're talking to a group, but you can really, I think each person listening can feel it in themselves. And that's something that y'all do is you not only work with a group, but individually, you can speak to an individual.
Mm. And so, what about the Soul Rising program really resonated with you and felt like it was your personal answer for healing and transformation at the time?
Well, first off, I didn't know why I had to watch one of the coffee and conversations. It was like, I have to watch, I have to make sure that I'm up, going, this is on. I just didn't know for like a week or two. I was like, so, make sure, make sure, make sure. And so I watched it and I was interacting with y'all. And by the end of it, you had talked about Soul Rising. I'm like, I am joining that class. I have to join that class. And to be honest, I really didn't know why I was joining the class. And people would say, why are you taking Soul Rising? And so I would give the, finding my true authentic self, not really knowing what that was. So through Soul Rising, then, yes, I learned how to shamanic journey and got my Reiki 1 attunement. But I think the most important thing out of Soul Rising is working on the chakras, doing the bottom 4. And if people don't realize, this is a 4-month class, so you're working with each chakra, doing a deep dive into it. It can be a very emotional experience. I mean, you're finding stuff inside you that you didn't know was in there. And you're working with maybe issues or traumas that you had buried down in there, and they're just coming out. And you are working with them and you feel free. It's things that if I started to think about before could really start getting to me to bring me down. Now I could think about them and it doesn't bother me. So I think that working with the chakras for me was the most important part, because it brought out joy. It brought out happiness. It brought out me. I think working down through, by the time we got to root and we're like, do we have problems with root? I'm like, no. We had worked through these and everything had been clearing up so much that I was like, I'm great by the time we got to root. So the one thing that I want to emphasize to people, and this may not be true for everyone, but for me, this was a life-changing experience. It really, really was. And I can't thank y'all enough.
You were such an amazing addition to the program. I remember there were multiple times when we were in class, you would ask a question and I would just start laughing because they were just such deep, profound questions that really showed me how committed you were to your healing and to really finding those answers. And I know that you were saying, you weren't quite sure why you were supposed to join the program, or you weren't quite sure why you were supposed to listen to that conversation. And I find that really interesting because I think that's an experience that a lot of our students share. It's something I've heard from many of you guys, of just this feeling of, I don't know why, but this is meant for me. But I'm
Mhm.
curious, was there a moment during the program when you were doing that chakra work or you were learning everything that we're teaching? Was there a moment where you kind of sat back and you were like, oh, that's why? Did you have that moment?
I think whenever I think back to it, it's funny because what I think to is when I found my inner child again.
Mm.
And yes, I worked through all these hard traumas and everything. And for me, and it's kind of, I work through things and it just goes out, I'm done. And it doesn't even, it's not really there anymore because I don't need it. So the one that really sticks with me is when we found our inner child, we were working on our sacral. And so, yeah, I started thinking, oh, wouldn't it be fun to get some sidewalk chalk or something? And little things that I thought of. And all of a sudden I thought, I need to go take a riding lesson. I had horses throughout most of my life, but then I had gotten really sick and had to stop riding. And I didn't think I was going to be able to ride again because I became allergic to horses, asthma attacks, all these things. So I thought, let me try it. And I went and I was fine. And I was so happy. And I came back, honestly, I pulled a groin. you know, I hadn't been on a horse for 11 years, but I am riding like 5 times a week now. And it is bringing me so much joy. I love it. This is who I am. I am a rider, I'm an equestrian, I'm a hunter jumper. I'm going to get back into competing. And I mean, it just excites me.
And I think one of my favorite moments watching you go through this process in the program as well was that process of seeing you almost it really was almost overnight after you came back from that riding lesson and there was just something in you that had woken up. You were just glowing. And in that process, you still had those limiting beliefs to work through around claiming that for yourself and not feeling selfish and doing something that brings just you joy. And I wonder if you
Mhm.
could share a little bit more about that because I think that's something that a lot of people when they think about joining the program, they have this hesitation of, well, isn't that selfish or who am I to spend money on myself or take time for myself or all of those things. And I think your story really highlights why that's so important.
Yeah, when you think about, this is going to be a 4 month long program. I'm going to be at nights, my husband's going to be coming home, but now I'm in a class or I'm doing the workbook, watching videos. And, so I felt like I don't see him much during the day. Normally, I want to spend my evenings with him, but this became so important to me to do. Um, and he was so, oh gosh, I'm losing the word, but so proud of me really for doing this and just said, whatever you need, you do it. So yes, that it was the time, why am I, like you said, why am I spending this much money? Is it okay for me to be spending this much money? But then I had to think, yes, it is okay because I'm doing something for me. It is okay that I'm taking this time because I'm doing this for me. And as each class went on, it was like, yes, exactly. This is why I'm doing this. I'm doing this for me. This is what I'm learning. And this is going to be great for everyone by the time I finish. Because when I do it for me, then it opens me up to be better with other people.
And so you had this process of kind of talking yourself through these things and then getting into the course and seeing all the healing and of course meeting your inner child happened later in the program, but could you share a little bit about how the program met your expectations and how it was different than what you were expecting as well?
Well, when I first started it, again, I really didn't understand what we were going to be doing. I thought, oh, okay, I'm going to learn how to shamanic journey. And I'm like, okay, what's a shamanic journey? And I have to say that that was incredible. And meeting my spirit guides and going to the spirit of the horse and actually discovered that a horse of mine had passed because she kept visiting me during my journeys. And so I asked her, and she said that she had. And so I double checked. I like texted people and said, is she still alive? How is she doing? And they're like, no, she's passed. So she was with me for a lot of the time. Um, but really trying to go back to the question of the different areas, um, using each chakra, these deep dives. They, like I say, they were very emotional. There were times where I would say to people, I'm sorry, I'm ugly crying, and I wasn't the only one, a lot of us were. And it brought out things that you hadn't thought about, issues. You're like, why is this bothering me so much? Why does my solar plexus feel like crying, feel like anger? Oh, so much anger that I didn't realize. And found that anger, found the answers to that anger, and released it. And that's a wonderful thing. I mean, sometimes you don't know what you have bottled up inside you. And digging deep and going deep into those chakras, into the different areas and different aspects of your life, and to just then have that release. It's wonderful.
And you've shared a few moments in the program that were really profound for you, but were there any other moments that you feel like have stuck with you since graduation and really shifted how you view yourself and the world around you?
Oh, definitely. I see myself as a more comfortable person, more confident person. Um, I I was kind of just there for a while. Um, you know, I loved being with my family. I loved visiting my grandson and daughters, but I felt more like it was just kind of bland. You're not really there. And I feel alive. I feel really alive now. I'm really happy. So it just, I think that people kind of go, really, is that what she's really saying? It, that doesn't really happen, but it does. It really does. And I know I'm not the only one, talking with all the other classmates and, you know, as we go through the live programs and the live classes, you know, we talk together, we all release things together and are there for one another.
That's one of my favorite things as a facilitator for the program is getting to watch how you all kind of step into that first class and there's that feeling of oh there's people watching me, right? When you get on Zoom and there's all these faces and you don't know them and you're about to embark on this really beautiful but intense journey and there's that feeling of oh there's people here. And then by the end you guys are just so open and connected and loving and supportive and getting to watch you guys uplift one another and connect with one
Mhm.
another and be able to bring your experiences forward. And I always laugh because every time we do a course like this and you guys have created this really beautiful community with each other, there comes a point where somebody says in a class, I would sound crazy to anybody else, but I know you guys will understand. And I
Yes.
love that moment because it's like, yes, this is it. This is the space where you get to be seen and you get to be understood and you don't sound crazy and people understand what you're
Mhm.
going through and they've been there and they can relate and they can have compassion for what you're experiencing. I wonder if you could share a little bit more about what your experiences were like as a member of that community that you created with your fellow students.
When I did the live classes, it became like friends. And you could just say anything. And somebody else would then come on next and go, oh, I feel the same way Diana did. And I'm so glad she asked that question. And then they might have another question that I'm like, oh, I'm so glad they asked that question. So we all had kind of so similar questions and experiences. And you don't really find that out in other when you're just out in society. And we could talk about, oh, I met my power animal. My power animal is an owl. What's your power animal? And talk about what our power animals did with us or what they said. And, our spirit guides. And I have a spirit guide that sings to me, and nobody laughed at that except for, you might just go, that's a pretty cool thing. But there's no like, oh my God, what's she talking about? Somebody sings to her. And then we have the message chat group. And so you can put down anything in that and people will answer your questions or be supportive if something's going wrong with your life at the time. They're there for you. You guys are there. You can individually say, jump on over to our chat and we can have a discussion about things. So it's a community. The class is a community. It's not just I'm taking a class.
And so in that, what was your experience like with your facilitators? Of course, you've got three facilitators in the program, myself, Christine, and Chantel, and we all kind of have our own areas of expertise and our ways of holding space for you guys. But what was your experience like in that kind of setting?
Well, first off, all three of you are incredible. Absolutely incredible. And it was fun because we could do during the week, we could do a class with Chantel. We could do a class with you. We might have a class with Christine. And each class was a little different. It's all covering the same topic, but everybody kind of has their own point of view, different ways to work through each one. And what I love about all of you is you still could get to us as an individual. And no matter which way you did it, and it was in different ways, but you would see us. And even though we might have 12 people on the class, you saw us as an individual and worked with us as an individual, and you made each of us feel comfortable. And you did that with so much compassion.
Mm. And so I'm curious, knowing all of this, being able to reflect on where you were before the program and then see yourself and live as yourself now after graduation, what would you say is the biggest change, or how do you feel like this program has shifted your life since you graduated?
I think it's brought out the joy in me.
Mm.
That was kind of pushed down before. It's brought out a lot of confidence. I don't feel like I used to feel really bad that I would have to rely on somebody for something else because it would stress me out if I had to do it. It would give me anxiety. And now I feel comfortable doing things that before I would have to ask for help. It was like, making a phone call to someone that would be a little bit difficult to do to work out a problem, oh, I can't get this medication isn't coming in right. You've got to talk and you've got to say, we have to have this. Why aren't you working with it? And I would ask my husband to do it. And, he was fine doing it. But now, anything that would have been stressful for me before, I don't mind doing anymore.
And that I think is such a beautiful takeaway, having been able to be with you on your journey personally for so long and knowing how deep that anxiety did go, especially at the beginning of the program, and watching that transformation now is truly incredible.
Yeah. And you don't realize when you first start how deep things are.
Mm.
I knew that I had some anxiety and I just didn't realize how much anxiety there was and how I was unhappy and that life could be more. You just kind of go into the class thinking, okay, what are we going to do? And then it comes out and you're like, wow, my life has changed.
And do you feel like the tools and techniques that you learned in class that helped you kind of bring all of those emotions up and release them, do you feel like those tools then are still helping you in your day to day life after you graduated?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Yeah. And you can go back if something's bothering me, I can go back and think about, how we worked on it. Where is it in my body? What can I do to help release it? Um, Even not having to think about it, I can just realize that, okay, this isn't going right. Let me change that. And so you can just, instead of going one direction, you can go another direction.
And one thing that we haven't talked about that's, of course, a big part of the program, and maybe we've touched on it a time or two, but is that process of shamanic journeying and working with your spirit team. And I'm curious how that process has gone since you graduated. Do you find that your spirit team is with you in your day to day life?
Oh, yes. Yes, they are there. And I ask questions of them. So, I start my morning with a walk with the dogs and I say good morning to everyone and to all my spirit guides, below and above, the divine, everyone. It's part of my morning routine to walk and, greet everyone in the morning. And I know that they're with me through the day. And if I have an issue, I can just kind of relax, do my breathing, call on them to help me with that issue, help me relax and see what I need to do.
Beautiful. And so going into the program, of course, at the end you've learned all of these amazing things and you can reflect back on it, but did you have any hesitations or fears or worries about yourself or what would happen or your capabilities going into the program that you were able to work through and get to the other side of?
When I first started the program, again, I really didn't know what it was. And as we first started, we're starting in heart, and I'm like, I'm fine. And as we started to dive into it, as you realize those problems, you're like, now you're going to have me stuck. I'm I've got all these kind of issues and traumas coming to the surface. Oh my God, now I'm going to be stuck and these are bothering me and I'm crying during the day and I'm getting extra counseling for this, trying to work through it. Little did I know how well, y'all were going to be able to help me release those, to work through them. Uh, you just don't understand at the beginning what really is going to happen and what this really is about.
And so if someone came in and they were thinking about joining the program and maybe they had similar hesitations, you'd mentioned your hesitation about the investment or your hesitation about if it was actually going to help, or then when you were in it, that hesitation about, well, how am I going to be able to work through all of this? Is it actually going to do anything? What would you say to someone who has similar fears?
I would tell them that come to the class, work on those fears. You'll be so amazed on how those fears can be looked at and examined, and then you can work through them and not have them anymore. Like say, coming to the class, okay, I'm going to shamanic journey, but those working with the issues and the chakras, I think are the most important things. I met one woman and we were talking about things. And so I started talking about the class, and she was like, really, it really did that for you. And I'm like, it helps you so much. You you're going to be different. You're going to feel different. And she was like, I'm going to have to look into this class. This just sounds amazing. And I do. I tell anybody who wants to hear about it how it changed my life, how it has helped me. And so I just tell people that, you know, you go in not knowing who you really are, but you're going to come out really feeling like this is who I am and I like who I am. I went in maybe not liking myself that much, and I came out and I can really say, hey, I like who I am.
I have chills. That's absolutely amazing. That's amazing. And I think going into it, that's the space that we're holding for each of our students, is this potential of, if you're willing to show up and do the work and dive deep, that is available and it is a possibility and potential for you that's right within your grasp, as long as we're able to work together and step into that space. And so in that, who would you recommend joining the program to? What do you think an ideal student for this kind of course is?
Well, of course, it has to be somebody who is open, um, open spiritually, or ready to be, wants to know more and become more open spiritually, that they haven't really accepted, or they kind of fight it, but say, hey, I've seen people. But I think someone who really wants to work on themselves. Some people may really come for learning how to journey, and that's great. But I think it's someone who really want to work on themselves. I think that's the most important thing. People who have problems or issues or traumas and say, I can't get through this. This is bothering me. I don't know how to cope with it. Come to the class, because you are going to learn how to cope with it. You are going to do more than cope with it. You're going to feel fine with that issue, and it's not going to bother you anymore.
Mm. And if you could summarize this class and your experience for someone who is interested, how would you summarize it in your own words?
In my own words, um, if somebody asked me, I would say that it is a class for me, and maybe for you if you're looking for that. It's a way to find out who you are. It is a class to look at what has been bothering you in your life, what has been making you a person that you didn't like, or making you a person that you didn't feel confident about. This is going to turn you into a person that you like, make you feel confident. Oops, sorry about that. And bring you, I think when I watched other people too, it brings you joy. It really does. You know, it's amazing to find out who you are, not who you who life kind of, I wouldn't say made you, but kind of put you in a situation. And this brings you back, centers you to who you really are.
Mm. Beautiful. And I would love, if you're comfortable, I would love to kind of bring this conversation in for a landing by sharing a little bit more about your personal journey with horses from start to finish, because it's been so beautiful to witness, but I know it's also been such a gorgeous metaphor for your own growth as a person and in your spirituality and in your well-being. So I wonder if you could just kind of share with us what that journey has been like and where you are with it today.
Sure. From the time I was 10 until I think it was 2013, I always had horses. For 17 years, I had horses in my backyard. I could look out the kitchen window and there they were. They were my passion. They really were. I could go if I didn't feel good, I'd go out there. If I was sad, I would go out there. And I had a mare who I would sit down on the edge of her stall and she would stand right behind me with her head hanging right here. Just, she knew. She knew that I was sad, that I just needed some comfort, and she would just be there. So when I did get sick and I started having all these issues, it was so hard to say that I had to give it up. Um, it was, it's kind of devastating when something's been your passion your whole life and all of a sudden you can't do it anymore. So I decided that, okay, that was a portion of my life that was closed and let's start a new one. But when I did Soul Rising, and all of a sudden I started thinking, let me try these classes again. It just opened me up. I think it brought out that passion in me. And I can't say that enough, that it's made me so happy. And I've got like these goals that I look for, my trainer says, do you want to get a horse and just be happy in taking, riding in the shows? Or do you want to win the shows? And I look at her and say, I want to win the shows, this is what I want to do. And then through the class, what also was great was with the shamanic journeys. One of the times I went to visit the spirit of the horse, and it was incredible because all my horses from the past who had passed away came to visit me. And it was such a joy to be with them all. And that was kind of also how I learned that my mare Tupper had passed, because she showed up. And I wasn't sure, did you show up just to show up? Because she had been in my happy place, always helping me too through my shamanic journeys. So that was when I could question that. And then she was such a part of my journey. And it's funny because she comes to visit me now. I know some people may think this is kind of crazy, but I was doing a class with somebody, and it was something very different. We were doing light language. And so somebody's talking to me, and I, the feeling, the power that comes when someone's speaking to you using light language is just incredible. And when it was starting, she wandered up and she was standing right there. She was very curious about it, wanting to know about it. And I had this profound effect from it. And I looked at her and I said, what do you think? She looks at me and she goes, it's bullshit. And I just laughed at her. It was so typical of what she would say about things. And I just love when she comes to visit with me and does stuff.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that story. And I know that I'm looking forward to seeing all of your photos from competition. I think your story is just so beautiful on so many levels, because you have, of course, the personal healing and releasing traumas and letting go of those limiting beliefs and really coming to that space where, like you said, you like who you are and you know who you are. And then you have that process of, opening to your spiritual gifts and being able to shamanic journey and cultivate all of this really beautiful energetic awareness in yourself. But then you also have this really gorgeous narrative about how you can rediscover your passion, and that it can come to you in ways that you don't expect, and that it's never too late to step back into that space and really reawaken to who you truly are. And I feel like all of those things together is just such a beautiful message of hope and inspiration for
Yes.
anyone listening.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. Just like I say, it was life changing. And I hope that people can really feel that from me. that that is a true statement. It's not just something that I'm saying. Um, if you need the help, if you feel stuck, try it. What's it going to hurt? You're going to get something out of it no matter what. So you may not have the same experience I had. Everybody has individual experiences, but, you know, go find your experience.
Mm. And so, as we bring this to a close, is there anything else that you want to make sure people know, either about the program or about working with our Moon Rising team?
I just want to say again how incredible the team is. When you are in a class, sometimes, you don't get individual attention, but each of you provides individual attention to us. You really see us. You advise us. You give us so much insight. It's, I was seen. I was seen. You really could see who I was. You could see what I needed, and you were there and you helped.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for coming on the show today, Diana. And of course, as I would say to you at the end of class, for showing up and doing the work. It has been an honor and a privilege to get to share this space with you. And I'm so excited because you've decided to join us for the Soul Rising practitioner training as well.
Yes. Yeah, I'm very excited about that one. I mean, if I could do so much with the lower four chakras, just think what I could do with the upper ones. So I was like, why wouldn't I join?
Beautiful. So you guys will probably see Diana back on the show once she graduates from our Soul Rising practitioner level to talk about how her transformation has continued. But for now, I hope that you found inspiration and insight from this podcast, as I did from listening to Diana share her story. Thank you so much again for coming on the show.
Oh, thank you for having me. It was so good to see you.